Am I the idiot for telling my sister that she should have expected to be outshone by her best friend at her wedding? My sister, N, female 29, has been best friends with Ruby, female 30, for as long as I, female 25, can remember, so growing up Ruby was like a second big sister to me. One thing that is important to note is that Ruby has always had the most outrageous fashion sense possible. She's the person that would wear those runway outfits that you think no one would actually wear. And got engaged pre-COVID. Almost as soon as it happened she started being really weird to Ruby. When she made me maid of honor I was kind of surprised because they've always sworn to be the MOH at each other's weddings. But I am her blood sister so it wasn't that weird. But I was completely blown away when she made a group chat and I found out that Ruby wasn't even a bridesmaid. Both me and my mom tried to talk to her about it since we figured they had an argument or something, but she would only say that Ruby didn't care anyway. I know that Ruby was hurt but she didn't want any drama so I agreed to let it go. Throughout the whole wedding process my mom kept asking and if she would invite Ruby, if she would ask Ruby's opinion, etc. but and refused to have any contact with her or talk about anything wedding related with her whatsoever. On Saturday my sister was married. She had a beautiful outside, socially distanced wedding. But she was seething the whole time because of Ruby's dress. It wasn't at all outrageous by Ruby's standards so I don't believe that she wanted to outshine my sister. She wore quite a simple wedding dress but that was her choice. As MOH I of course went to her fitting and that was literally the one she chose, and has been cursing Ruby out and saying that their friendship is over ever since, like she hadn't been ignoring her all through lockdown. Finally I just said that she's been friends with Ruby most of her life and she knows what she dresses like and that she should have expected this. If it was that much of a problem she should have found a way to mention it to her. Or just made her a bridesmaid. And lost it with me. She sent Ruby some really horrible messages after she screamed at me. She didn't say a word to me all of yesterday, but she's bad-mouthing me to our dad who is on her side. My mum has told and that she should apologize to Ruby for the nasty messages she sent and for yelling at me so and isn't talking to her either. I don't even know what's going on but Ruby swears on her life that they didn't have an argument, or anything pre-COVID. And says that that's none of my business and I should be supporting my real sister. My dad agrees with her and she's rallied the other bridesmaids against me so am I the idiot? Just to clear some things up. 1. Ruby didn't wear a wedding dress or anything really outrageous. It was a dark red, bodycon dress in a satiny material. There were lots of people in form-fitting dresses, the bridesmaids were wearing them, and she didn't look out of place. Edit again, some of you people are ridiculous LMAO, assuming the absolute worst case scenario. It wasn't a spaghetti strap dress that just barely covered her but it was an appropriate length, and had long sleeves. 2. If this needs saying twice, the bridesmaids were wearing bodycon dresses. So were many other guests. It wasn't a particularly traditional affair, nobody was offended by our figures, Ruby's dress didn't massively stick out. 3. Ruby is very attractive. She always has been but I never thought it was an issue for N before. 4. Ruby and N had been best friends for 25 years. They didn't grow apart or anything, they stayed in constant contact even as adults, and then N suddenly wasn't talking to Ruby anymore. My mom and I weren't trying to be controlling, we were worried. We assumed that something really bad had happened for them to cut contact overnight. When N refused to talk about it my mom was only more worried because she's normally an open book. 5. I don't love Ruby more than N or anything like that. The only reason I'm so close to Ruby is because N used to be so close to Ruby. They were basically inseparable so I grew up tagging after both of them. Of course I love N very much, I just think she's being unreasonable in this situation. 6. Ruby was always going to be at the actual wedding. The phrasing was bad on my part, sorry. When my mom was suggesting that and invite Ruby it was to wedding prep things like dress shopping etc. 7. I don't know if Dave Groom has feelings for Ruby. I have never thought that. They've met many times and there's never been any signs that he does. I definitely do not think it is an affair because then surely my sister wouldn't want to marry Dave and neither would Ruby at the wedding at all. Ruby doesn't have a history of going after N's boyfriends or crushes. Update. Based on some of the advice I'm receiving I was going to tell N this morning how much she means to me and that I'm there for her. But she's seething again so I'm not trying to. Dave asked me if I could talk to N, because they've also apparently had a massive fight because he tried to defend Ruby on the wedding night. He asked me if I could explain where he misstepped and how to make it up to her. This is the first time he's ever asked me for help with their relationship so he's clearly at a loss. I said I was just as confused and we didn't even know why she wasn't at the bridal party so he should just try and talk it out with N. This is when it gets weird. Dave said that the reason Ruby wasn't in either wedding party was because he wanted her as a best woman, and N wanted her as a maid of honor, but N wouldn't budge and said that they should just drop her from both parties to be fair. He said that she explained it to Ruby and that's why they had a fight, because Ruby wanted to be included. I said okay and just hung up but the more I think about it the more confused I am. If they had a massive fight about Ruby being maid of honor, surely Ruby would remember? Also, I don't know why Dave would want Ruby as his best woman when to my understanding he only met her after he started dating Anne. I really am taking your advice not to meddle to heart, which is a nightmare because now my curiosity is totally piqued, so I won't bring it up. It's possible that this is all I'll ever know, and this will bug me to my grave, but I have made a vow not to push in any more on it. Thank you everyone for your comments. Thank you all not the idiot people for reassuring me that I'm not the one acting crazy. Thank you also to all the helpful YKA/ESH verdicts that helped me see how I could change my behavior in future to be a more supportive sister. Update 2, I'm even more confused. Dave called me up about 30 minutes ago asking me, in a very angry tone of voice, if any of his groomsmen behaved inappropriately towards me. I asked what and he asked again. I could hear Anne in the background shouting something. I said that they had been perfect gentlemen at the wedding and that I hadn't had any contact with them since. He then asked me if Ruby knew that she was meant to be best woman. I said not to my understanding, but it was possible that I don't know, as both she and Anne had been quite secretive about what happened between them and that he'd be better off asking them themselves. He laughed and hung up. Ruby has texted me asking me what's happening and if I knew about the best woman/maid of honor thing. Just now, I got a message from one of the bridesmaids saying that if Dave calls me I shouldn't answer him. And is on the phone to my dad, screaming, it sounds like. I have no clue what's going on, but I think somewhere in this mess is the truth of what actually happened. Everything seems to be exploding. I now think that the bridesmaids, or at least that particular one, are involved, and if things keep happening at this pace I think I should eventually find out what in the flying frick is happening. Update 3. There has been a lot of shouting and tears today. Honestly, I'm exhausted, but so many people have commented for the update, so here it is. I'm still kind of in shock. And has been lying to just about everyone. The story is very complicated and long. This list is actually what I used to wrap my own head around it. It's all the facts I have in chronological order. 1. Dave has been to jail and is an ex-drug addict. He met Ruby before he met, and after he recovered, he was really struggling with money and Ruby helped him a lot. He considers her to be one of his closest friends. 2. 2 years later Dave was doing well at his job and much more stable and functional. Around this time Ruby introduced him to Anne. 3. Anne was very reluctant to have a relationship with Dave because of his past, but she had strong feelings for him. Eventually they began dating, but she was still ashamed of the person he used to be, so she told us that they met over a dating app. Dave consented to this at the time. 4. As Dave became more comfortable with himself and the relationship became more serious, he told Anne that she needed to be honest with us about his history. She agreed to tell us, but she didn't. She told Dave that she had and wrote a fake letter from my family about how we were really grateful for his honesty and accepted him. She told Ruby that my parents had reacted really badly, so Ruby never brought it up with Dave or my family because she thought it was still a very sensitive topic. 5. When Dave proposed and started freaking out about the wedding, Dave wanted people from his support group to be there, Ruby as his best woman, etc., which would expose the lies. But she still didn't want to tell us who Dave was or Dave that she had lied to him, so she decided to continue lying instead of coming clean. 6. So, Anne pretended to be really upset that she couldn't have Ruby as her MOH so she could make the argument that she should be dropped from both wedding parties. She told Dave that she had explained their decision to Ruby and that Ruby had taken issue with it to keep him happy. In reality, she knew that if Ruby knew she was meant to be best woman, it could easily get back to me and my mom, and then raise questions from us about Ruby's relationship with Dave. So she didn't tell Ruby anything at all, and that's why Ruby was so confused about what happened and couldn't think of anything. Told Dave and all of his friends from his support group that they shouldn't mention the addiction in speeches or even casual conversation because it was a sensitive subject for certain family members before the wedding. Told the bridesmaids so many lies about Ruby. She told them that she had a habit of causing scenes, that she was going to try and sleep with the groomsmen, that one of them was an ex-boyfriend of hers that dumped her, that she would get way too drunk. Essentially, she painted Ruby as a disaster waiting to happen so the bridesmaids wouldn't like her, and also so that they could keep her away from certain people, specifically the ones that also knew Dave, at the wedding. And also told the bridesmaids that the only reason that Ruby was invited is because I idolized her so they wouldn't repeat any of the lies she told to me. 7. After the wedding, and put on her enormous meltdown about the dress. The bridesmaids obviously didn't have a very positive opinion on Ruby, so they were easy to convince that it was meant as a genuine slight. My dad did what and apparently expected everyone to do by caving immediately because she was the bride. If me and my mom had done the same and would basically have used it as an excuse to cut Ruby out of everyone's life. 8. She tried to do the same thing with Dave's groomsmen by insisting to him that they had said inappropriate things about the bridesmaids. The idea was to basically remove anybody that knew the truth about Dave from the general social circle so it wouldn't come up again. 9. Dave smelt a rat. He asked what exactly the issue was with Ruby's dress and what exactly his friends had said, and panicked and accused him of not loving her, choosing his friends over her, etc., and it turned into a massive argument. Dave was mad and very suspicious, so he started calling people up trying to figure out what happened. 10. A couple of the bridesmaids said that and was telling the truth about the groomsmen. She asked/pressured them to, but most were kind of weirded out by the request, and I think they successfully got that across to Dave. He called me to ask if I knew what was going on, and told Dave that I was just like him, caring about Ruby more than her, and also that I wasn't there when it happened, but the timing of the story didn't match up, so Dave called me anyway. That was a weird phone call. 11. At this point he knew she was spouting BS, so he asked her up front what was going on. She broke down and told Dave everything. 12. He was fuming. He texted us all to let us know about his past, and then basically kicked and out. She came to us where she then had to explain everything again, and is absolutely shaken. I never considered her capable of this kind of deception and manipulation, and I don't think she has ever done something like this before. Contrary to what some commenters seem to believe, I don't hate my sister. I feel sorry for her, even though I'm really hurt by what she did, because she feels so guilty and absolutely miserable because she's worried that things will never be worked out with Dave. She's gone to bed now very upset because our mom won't even look at her. She's fuming that and would deceive and hurt her, and so many other people like this. I do understand where she's coming from. My dad is also very shocked and hurt, and texted Ruby. She sent her a message explaining and apologizing, but obviously Ruby is really angry and upset. She just told her that she couldn't speak to her right now, but maybe she'd call her in the morning once they'd both had a chance to calm down. Dave is probably the most hurt out of everyone, and I understand why. He wouldn't speak to him, but he did tell me that he really thought that he had our acceptance, and that the letter she had written to him had been his most treasured possession ever since he received it, and to find out that it was false was absolutely crushing. I told him that we did accept him for who he was and that nobody blamed him, but I don't think it helped much. He has asked for distance from our family, and I understand why. I'm not sure when he'll be willing to speak to Anne again, or if he wants to be her husband after this. I wouldn't blame him if he goes on to find someone else. Thanks to Reddit, it turned out everyone was way off base, although I don't think anyone could have predicted this. But a lot of the comments were very insightful and gave me food for thought despite everyone kind of looking in the wrong directions. Update 4. The past 2 weeks have been very stressful. Anne and my mom have been fighting and crying for most of it. We learned that this deception of Anne's was not out of the blue. She has had this obsession with her image for a very long time. She confessed to a lot of stuff from secondary school and her job. Some of it was worrying and some of it was really scary and manipulative. I feel so distant from the person she has become. There's tension between us that I'm not sure will ever go away, even though it really pains me as well because she's my sister. Once my dad heard some of the revelations, he decided that and should go to a therapist, and really struggled against the decision, which led to a massive fight between her and my dad. I've never seen my dad so angry, either has she, which is probably why she eventually agreed. The therapist is supposed to help and process her emotions after everything that has happened and also hopefully get to the root of her problem. A lot of the comments suggested that our family wasn't healthy in the way we interact with each other. I'm conflicted on this because on one hand me and my mom were right that something was very wrong, but then that doesn't mean that we didn't behave badly, if that makes sense. So I suggested family therapy. My parents are looking into it. Hopefully we can learn a bit more about boundaries and each other, and eventually move on from this. And has been talking a lot to Ruby. From the sounds of it, Ruby is still very upset, but I have been taking the advice not to meddle so much in their relationship, and I am leaving them to it. Me and Ruby still speak a lot, but not about it. Dave sent a message 2 days ago that I think has sadly resolved this very terrible situation. After learning that this is part of a pattern of behavior, he doesn't think that he wants to be in a marriage with Anne at all, as he feels that she hasn't only hurt him deeply but deceived him about the type of person she is. I know from Ruby that he is also seeking therapy and has confided in friends about what happened, so he has a strong support system around him. I'm not getting involved with him other than that, as I think he deserves distance from my family after everything, but knowing he's okay does make me feel a little better. And has taken this news badly. When she first got the message, I think she had a panic attack. She was breathing really quickly and shaking and crying. She knows that Dave learned about her past from Ruby and is absolutely furious with Ruby for telling him. She is just as preoccupied with the thought of being someone divorced as she is with the fact that Dave is leaving her. I really hope that the therapist helps her get better, and although I'm not taking it as hard as my mom, I do feel guilty for not noticing this sooner because she's just not well.